Also working latest now on human remains that were discovered last summer at a construction site.
Providence police are investigating the man's death, which they are now considering a homicide. Yesterday we learned that the remains belonged to Philip Seals. Seals was born back in 1936 and lived in Providence from 1976 until at least 1982. Eyewitness News reporter Madeline Wright spoke with one of the experts from Texas who helped to identify the remains. She has the story now from the Providence Mobile Newsroom.
This has been a mystery years in the making. We now know who the victim is, and we talked with a woman who helped make that identification possible. Philip Seals went missing 32 years ago, but his body wasn't found until last year.
Everything is going to be just like any other homicide investigation.
Seals' body was under the floor of a factory basement on Prairie Avenue in Providence. On Thursday, police identified his body for the first time.
Mr. Seals did not work. He was a former member of the U.S. Air Force, I believe, up until 1955.
Rhode Island's chief medical examiner says a Rhode Island hospital ID was found near the body, but they still needed DNA testing to confirm the identification. That's where Dixie Peters from the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification came in. We talked to her over the phone.
We've helped assist in over 1,300 identifications, so that's probably a pretty significant number.
Peters says her team collected DNA from a tooth and arm bone that belonged to Seals. They cross-referenced those with DNA from one of Seals' siblings using cells from inside the cheek, and that's how they made the match.
If you don't have something to compare that to, you're never going to be able to identify them. So that's where the reference samples are really important.
DNA analysts also cross-referenced Seals' DNA with samples from a local, state, and federal database. As far as Seals' remains, the chief medical examiner says her office will release them to his next of kin. With the Providence Mobile Newsroom, Madeline Wright, Eyewitness News.